Hello everybody, good morning and welcome to the United Stands. I'm Mark Goldbridge and this is your latest Manchester United news as Qatar issue a take it or leave it ultimatum to the Glazers as dressing room uncertainty begins to build around an underperforming Erik ten Hag. We'll also be talking about some interesting comments coming out from an ex-United legend and a lot more on the show as well. Of course, we've got Erik ten Hag's press conference to react to at lunchtime, and it's the Friday night show tonight where I've got a nice reveal for you. But look, and match day tomorrow, lots to get involved in. A must-win game for Manchester United. Check out the preview we did last night. But let's fly straight into the news this morning. Hope you're doing well. I'm starting to feel a bit better after a couple of days feeling under the weather. The nose is cleared, the throat is not as sore, the voice is coming back. The Qatari group will not increase its current offer. Despite the threat of a new offer from Sir Jim Radcliffe, they will not increase their new offer, believed to be around £5 billion. Sources close to the Qatari group say the news of Radcliffe's restructured offer constitutes another means of pressure intended to make them increase their offer. They do not feel that an offer needs to be increased. They feel that with what's going on with the team on and off the pitch, there is no reason to want to increase it. £5 billion is believed to be what Qatar would offer for Manchester United, and they feel that with £1 billion worth of debt and the current underperformance from the team, that £5 billion is a very good offer for them. The debt still stands at around £1 billion, and Old Trafford needs rebuilding, and the training ground remain in dire need of modernisation. Plus, Ten Hag's side is misfiring on the pitch. Therefore, they're 100% committed to a £5 billion offer, but £6 billion is too high, and they are not going to go anywhere near it. I always feel like there should be a moment of applause there. I almost feel like there should be a moment of applause. I mean, they've nailed the brief. Whether you want Qatar or not, they definitely have nailed the brief. I mean, absolutely spot on. I mean, we're not worth £5 billion if we're being honest. We've always known that. But the fact that the Glazers want £6 billion for a team that's shit, for an infrastructure that's shit, for a stadium that we all love but is rusting, and also for a club that needs, huge recruitment from top to bottom in just about every department. Absolutely spot on. And it is interesting, isn't it? Because they sit there with that money that the Glazers the Glazers should take, and the club continues to sink. In a harsh statement, it continues to sink. Look, I think we've been at times very passionate and excited about this sale process. I would imagine most of you are very much like me now, where it's a little bit like Gareth Southgate's latest England squad, isn't it? I mean, it's absolutely disgusting, but I'm just used to it. I mean, did you know that, yes, he's picked Harry Maguire. Did you know that Harry Maguire has played 23 Premier League minutes? Most of our squad's up around 600. He is the 24th used player this season. That means 23 players have had more minutes than Harry Maguire this season in the Premier League, and yet he still gets picked for England. Calvin Phillips has played 70 minutes, and Jordan Henderson has retired to Saudi Arabia, still get picked. James Ward-Prowse has got more assists than Manchester United and can't even get in the squad. That's England, but what I'm saying is, it's a little bit like that about this sale. It is massively important, but the constant dragging of it on, I have sort of lost interest. But I do obviously stand by what I was very passionate about and still am very passionate about. Full sale is the only way. And, I just can't be bothered to waste my blood pressure on the Glazers anymore. Like, £5 billion is a ridiculous amount of money for this football club, and it's a good offer. And the fact that they are still holding on, I mean, if I'm being honest with you, it's almost like, I don't want to give people I'm trying to think of an animal people won't care about. Right, a hyena, right? I won't get complaints about this. Imagine there's a hyena in a cage, and the Glazers have got the key. And it's hungry and it needs water, and you're offering it food and water, but the Glazers want more money, and that animal, that hyena, no, most people don't like them, it's really hungry and it needs letting out the cage, and the Glazers are going, I don't care about the welfare of that animal, I care about how much money I'm getting. And we're going, but we're giving you more than that hyena's worth. Let it out. It's starving. No. We want more money. That's how cruel the Glazers are being. Now, I'm not saying they're animal cruelty. What I'm saying is they're being cruel to Manchester United. Take the hyena out, put Man United Football Club in the cage. People are offering good money for Man United, and we're starving in that cage, and the Glazers won't let us out because they want more money. I mean, that is literally the analogy. United are being kept under lock and key, starving to death, and the Glazers, who are receiving very good money for us, and remember, they never paid for Man United in the first place. That thing they've got locked up in the cage, they never paid anything for it. Every penny they get is pure profit. They never paid anything for it. It's not like they're going to make a loss or a little bit of a profit. They paid nothing for it, and they're keeping us under lock and key. And when you think of the analogy like that, we are a starving football club in a cage that the Glazers won't open. Disgusting. And inevitably, I'm starting to get stressed and angry. Did you know, John Motson, when you have... Do you know tea? I don't know what you're on about. Morning, Mark. Do you think new owners will change the attitude of the players and staff? We're going to talk about that in a moment, Tom, because there are rumours of that dressing room discontent. I'm so excited. I'm heading to Old Trafford, first ever match tomorrow, says Oki. We love your show. Let's go Reds. Enjoy it, mate. Enjoy it. United are like a plant that gets fed sewage instead of clean water, and now we're dying, says Stu. And I'm scared for this club, Mark. There's a sense of despair and sadness about the situation. Just wish we'd have some good news in the shit show season, says Drov. You and animals, Mark, says Ike. I do. I'm very, very intelligent about nature. I've watched 2 episodes of the Beckham documentary, Namit. I'm purposely not rushing through it because I like to digest each episode and think about it. And what I would say about David Beckham, and this is very important on a morning show. I've said this for a long time. You need to watch the Beckham documentary, and you need to watch episode 2. I remember when Beckham kicked out against Argentina. I remember the press. It was horrific. I remember going to school and going down the pub. Oh no, it would be '98. I wasn't going to school. I'm thinking about Cantona. Cantona kick was school. I remember going down the pub with my mates, and they were all slagging Beckham off. And as a United fan, I had Beckham hair. Like I had the comb over with the bleached blonde hair. I'll get you some pictures. So I loved Beckham, and I was like. A week ago, Hoddle didn't have him in the team, and you were begging. Everyone wanted Beckham in the team. A week later, he kicks out, and everyone hates him. But the sheer abuse he got for a year, like every game he went on the street, being spat at, abuse for months and months and months. It makes me laugh how the modern day football fan, and there are people who are top Reds who've been going to United for decades, who think that today is worse. They'll go, never used to get this in our day. All these people on Twitter saying, drop this player, drop that player. I'm like, oh my God, have you had a bang on the head? Do you not remember what it was like? The terraces were bloody terrible in the late 80s and early 90s. David Beckham got abused for months, and people think it's worse now because Twitter's invented. I tell you what, it was a real eye-opener to what it was like. It was unbelievable. The press, the rival fans, it was a disgrace for months and months. And that lad was depressed. Absolutely depressed. Anyway, it's well worth a watch. Let me go back to what I was talking about. In relation to the sale, we're all depressed. Manchester United are in a very, very bad place. But I think Qatar have to send the message that they have and continue to send. This is the offer. It's there on the table. Take it. We'll buy all of the club. It's a hard stance. It's a right stance. Is it going to be successful? I hope it is. But I think they're right not to offer the $6 billion that all of you want, because the Glazers don't deserve that $6 billion and we're not worth it. Simple as. Do sellers in the Glazers' position normally ghost the prospective buyers as a form of negotiation rather than have the balls to properly negotiate, says Glenny Boy? I think they're holding out for $6 billion. Andy Weatherall has gifted a membership. But before I move on to something else, I do just want to say, it also says in that article that they think Sir Jim Radcliffe's offer may well be a tactic to get Qatar to offer again, and they're refusing to do it. I look at that Sir Jim Radcliffe offer and this 25% he wants to do, or the 50% he wants to do. I just don't trust Sir Jim Radcliffe. I'm sorry, and I know it's a statement, but I just do not trust him. His offer keeps changing all the time. It comes across to me, and I've got no evidence of this, it comes across with me that he's in bed with the Glazers. I just think is he a vehicle for the Glazers? Because his bid changes all the time, and it does feel like every couple of months we get a new Sir Jim Radcliffe offer. And I almost agree with Qatar that it feels like every new Sir Jim offer is meant to make them increase their offer, and they won't do it. The cold harsh truth about Ineos and Sir Jim is that they tried to buy Chelsea, they tried to buy Barcelona, and now Man United's the projects that he's always wanted because he supported them since he was a kid. You can flip that coin and say they clearly have a certain amount of money that they want to invest into football. And yeah, the romance of being a Man United fan is absolutely fine, but you did try and buy Chelsea and you did try and buy Barcelona or some stake in them. My concern with Sir Jim Radcliffe is that there is a very close relationship with the Glazers. I wouldn't be surprised if this 25% thing is actually a vehicle to make money, in the sense that, well, look, let's get a bit of cash flow into the business short term, so we can survive, so you can survive for another 3 years, and then in 3 years you might get your 10 billion, and then we'll all make money. And what I mean by that is, if Sir Jim buys 25% now, it means there's an influx of a billion into the club that they can use for debt resurfacement and whatever. And then in 3 years' time, they sell to somebody for 10 billion. So Jim doubles his money. The Glazers get what they want. You know, it wouldn't surprise me if there's some sort of tactic like that going on. I don't know for sure, and maybe it's just bad PR, but Sir Jim Radcliffe's bid, to me, when you take into account the Chelsea, the Barcelona bids, the fact that he changes his bid all the time, and this close relationship with the Glazers, just comes across as a Glazer facilitator to me. Qatar ownership has totally failed at PSG. If it happens, it won't be the quick fix people expect, says Rian. You know what? I think people are overreacting. It's a good question because it's in relation to Qatar. I think people are overreacting about PSG. I actually think PSG, in relation to the team they put out against Newcastle, it's the right way to go. I just think it's a new model. They're finally building a team that's not about superstars, you know, the Messis, the Neymars. That team looks a lot more balanced. I just think it's a new team, and I mean they had over 70% possession. I think the way PSG are looking to do it now is the right way to do it. Let's move on anyway, because that's all about the sale. I want to talk about the immediate future and Manchester United. Sorry, but total off subject. My first beautiful son was born like a blessing from heaven on the 31st of the 8th. He's Papa's dad's birthday, says Matthew James. No, that's great news, mate, and always fantastic to hear things like that. Big shout out to Matthew and his family there. Absolutely fantastic. Let's move on then. So let's move on the story from the sale. So a few little bits coming out this morning, rumour mill and in certain news outlets, that whilst Erik ten Hag maintains the support of the club and the players, there is concerns amongst the players certain players in relation to the way that Erik ten Hag is managing the club. Now, I wrote a few notes down here. He's a disciplinarian. He's one-dimensional, and players are losing confidence in his methods. Now, these are just notes from various outlets and messages I've had. Look, what I would say about this is that some of that hits a little bit close to the bone, actually, I must admit. As an Erik ten Hag fan, that hits close to the bone, because I'm reasonably good at reading people. There ain't no way Erik ten Hag is the life and soul of the party if you're down the pub. He's just not that sort of personality. You can tell he's a bit, he probably is a little bit one-dimensional. He is a bit of a school teacher, isn't he? He is a bit of a disciplinarian. He comes across as, and, when I hear stuff like that, I think, we've been here before. We've been here before with Mourinho. Mourinho has his favourites. Mourinho's a disciplinarian. Mourinho doesn't let the players into his inner circle unless you're one of his favourites. And I'm like, I'm getting this stuff last night, and I'm reading it this morning, and I'm going, we've been here before. We've been here before. The results are bad. Certain players aren't playing. He's not rotating massively. Disciplinarian. He's not one of the lads. He's very strict in the way that he deals with players. It's the classic story of how it begins to go wrong, where a manager starts to get rumours around their personality not being a good fit for the dressing room. And it's only early doors, but just beware of what it is, because you've got to grab it early before it becomes something bigger. I guarantee, I know for a fact that there'll be players in that dressing room that are not happy. There'll be players in that dressing room who feel they have no relationship with the manager and he doesn't like them and he doesn't want to use them and he's very strict and he doesn't let them in. But there's also a contrast between Ten Hag and Solskjaer, who wanted to be everybody's mate. Everyone loved Ollie because he wanted to be their mate, but he wasn't a very good coach. With Ten Hag, probably doesn't want to be their mate, but he's a good coach on his CV. He's a good coach. Last season, he was a good coach. So, look, I'd say monitor this sort of stuff, because it's nothing or it's everything. And what I mean by that is that it just depends how the players react to this as to how much of a victim they want to be. Now, unfortunately, we have a very big victim mentality in this squad over recent years. But what the thing to monitor is just how the players react. Now, if we beat Brentford tomorrow, I'm not worried. I'm not worried at all, because that just shows that Brentford should be beaten at Old Trafford, but they will be well organised and they will give us a game. And if we can beat Brentford tomorrow, we're going to have to work for it, which shows the players are working for the manager. If we don't beat Brentford tomorrow, then I think this becomes a bigger problem, certainly over the international break and into the next phase of the season, because if we can't beat Brentford tomorrow, it's evidence that the players are starting to use Ten Hag as the reason, and therefore they're starting to use the victim mentality. We've seen bad. What's the word? Bad. Oh God. We've seen players. It's not attitude. Bad body language. Bad body language. We've seen bad body language on the pitch from some players recently. And, the team lacks leaders, the team lacks personality, and it's got to step up to the plate. But all I'm saying is that, look, if you don't live in the UK, you won't realise. We have radio stations, we have media. It's just a constant barrage of people talking. There's so many news outlets that pay so many pundits. There's so many mainstream outlets and radio stations that employ so many pundits, and everybody wants to talk about Manchester United, and we're awash with it. This ex-Blackburn player says this about Ten Hag. This Arsenal player says this about Ten Hag. This ex-Chelsea player says Ten Hag, he's under pressure. We are constantly barraged by the negativity, and a lot of it is just noise. They're ready to go on Ten Hag 100%, and that pressure is obviously always going to be there. But the most important thing is the players. If he loses the players, then we've got a battle, and he's got to keep hold of those. But he's also got to stay true to himself. Mourinho stayed true to himself, and he got the sack. And I always feel guilty about Mourinho getting the sack, because in hindsight, we were wrong to go against Mourinho, even though the results were bad, because the players and the club caused that problem, and we were wrong. But Mourinho always deserves respect because he stayed true to himself. He stayed the same as he was, and he got the sack. And Ten Hag has to do that. So Jim Radcliffe is here for profit. That's it. He's part of the reason why this saga has dragged on for so long, says Clayton. Oh, 100%, yeah. And also, do you think Onana needs to go to the African Nations Cup in January, says Harry? Well, it's a bit of news, actually, Harry, and you're right to bring it up. Apparently, Onana is in discussions about whether he is going to go and play in January in the African Nations Cup. Preferably, I don't want him or Amrabat to go. I don't. I think that it's preferable that no player misses games for Manchester United, especially with all the injury problems we've got. But I guess we'll have to wait and see on that one. At the moment, I think a lot of people would say he can go, but for me, I obviously I don't want him to go. Just to add to this about players as well. Gary Neville's been speaking a lot as always, and he's been asked about the current situation at United. He said that the start of the season has been scruffy. Up and down, inconsistent, injuries and lots of things going wrong off the pitch. He said, I feel sorry for the manager. I know a lot of people will say he's got to do a lot better, and that's fine. He's the Man United manager. But there are a lot of big problems at the club that managers have found over the last 10 years. And I think until these problems are solved, we'll still continue to see underperforming teams, underperforming players. It's become a graveyard for coaches and players. It's not strong. It's not too strong a term. And this was quite interesting what he said. He said there are very few players that excel at Manchester United in the last 10 years. They were all great players when they came to the club. and they were all wanted by other clubs. They won these players off other clubs, and then they end up coming to Manchester United and they end up not succeeding and not performing to their levels. Why is that? It's because it's not culturally correct to accept players in the way that it should do, and we need to get that right. I mean, that might be a bit confusing to some people, but I think actually what he's saying is that we're buying players that other clubs wanted, and therefore they're never going to be a good fit. I suppose what he's trying to do is compare us to Chelsea. Chelsea have done this. Chelsea have done this over the last 12 months in abundance. You buy players that other clubs want, and therefore they're not a good fit for your club. Do I agree with that? I don't actually agree with it massively. I don't massively agree with it, actually. Just thinking off the hop. No, I don't. I don't think we've done what Chelsea did. I don't think we've bought players that other clubs wanted for the hell of it. I really don't. I think that, if you go back to Van Gaal, did other clubs want Daley Blind? Did other clubs want Schweinsteiger and Schneiderlin? Not to the extent that Chelsea stole Mudryk from Arsenal. Moved through Mourinho. Did other clubs want Pogba? Well, probably, but I think, Pogba was an ex-Man United player and he was exactly what we needed. Zlatan, Eric Bailly. No, I think they were players that Mourinho wanted. Solskjaer wanted Sancho. No one else was in for Bruno when we bought Bruno. Wan-Bissaka, no one else wanted Wan-Bissaka at 50 million. Harry Maguire, there was talk of Man City, but not really. Maguire was Solskjaer's pick. So actually, I think actually he's wrong. I think he's, I thought it was a good comment, but actually I think he's wrong. I think it's too easy to say that the reason one of the reasons we failed is because we bought players that other clubs wanted. I mean, look, you're always going to... Liverpool wanted Bellingham. He went to Real Madrid. Have Real Madrid made a mistake buying Bellingham because Liverpool wanted him? Sometimes good players will be wanted by other clubs. I don't think United went, Man City want Fred, let's buy Fred. Or, Man City want Maguire, let's buy Maguire. I don't think that's what happened at all. I think it's a get out. I mean, I think it would be very incompetent if that's what United did, but I don't think they did that. I'll stand by what I said last night. I mean, and actually, when you look at Ten Hag, Martinez played for him, Anthony's played for him, Onana's played for him. So, you can't just say other clubs wanted them. We clearly wanted them. Eriksen was a free transfer. Malacia is a young player from the Dutch league. Mason Mount, other clubs wanted Mason Mount, but Ten Hag's obsessed with him. Rasmus Højlund, there was other clubs interested, but Ten Hag was obsessed with him. Amrabat as well. So I don't. There might be one or two players that we bought just because other players wanted them, but it's such a small percentage of the last 10 years. I don't think that's the problem, to be honest with you. Maybe some of you agree with Gary. I don't on that one. I think that I just think the biggest problem is how we recruit in relation to the background checks. And maybe Gary's a bit, maybe Gary knows the truth and he's just skirting around the issue a bit. I mean, he's right in saying the recruitment's been bad, but I don't think the recruitment's been bad because we bought players that other clubs wanted and they didn't fit our system. I think that's a bit of a weak way of saying what I'm about to say, is that we didn't do our homework on the players. I mean, ultimately it ends up in the same way, but do you generally think most of the players we've bought over the last 10 years, we bought them because other clubs wanted them and they didn't suit us? I don't. I think we genuinely did want to buy those players. Where we went wrong is we paid too much money, we gave the player too much money, and we didn't do enough of a background check on them. And that third one is the one that people get scared about, because they're like, what do you mean by that? What do you mean by that? In this modern world, if you can't say this, you can't say that. What do you mean by you didn't do enough background checks? Well, what I mean is exactly what Brighton do and exactly what a lot of clubs do and exactly what Sir Alex Ferguson used to do. You look at the player, you look at their personal life, you look at their family life, you look at their friendship groups, you look at their social life, you look at their attitude. These are massive things. You don't just go and recruit somebody because they've got a good CV. Behind that CV in their personal life, they might never sleep. They might have an addiction to something. Like, this is something that Manchester United seem to have ignored. Now, I'm not saying some of the players we bought have got addictions and all that sort of stuff, but, mental health, what your friendship groups are like, What's your upbringing? What's your attitudes towards certain things? What's your attitudes towards relationships? Are you in a stable relationship? Do you sleep around a lot? All these things, people, oh, you can't talk about that. Human rights, you bloody well can when you're paying them 200 grand a week to play for Manchester United. So, no, I don't think Man United have struggled over the last 10 years because they bought players that other clubs wanted and they didn't fit the system. I think Manchester United struggled over the last 10 years because the people that we've got in recruitment are absolutely terrible at their job, and nobody has ever really looked at the type of player that we want to bring into the football club. I mean, I was listening to that Beckham documentary, and Paul Ince said it. The gaffer, Sir Alex, he wanted to know everything about you. He wanted to know whether you were going to get married, whether kids were on the board, what your family life was like, everything. He got to know everything about you. And the reason he did that wasn't because, he wanted you to be married and have kids and, and not be going out drinking and that. Of course he wanted that. But he wanted to know what your personality was and how you fitted into his team. That's all Sir Alex was interested in. What was your personality? What was your beliefs? What were you like as a person? Because I tell you what, if you've got two players who are absolutely fantastic, you've got two right wingers, yeah, brilliant players, identical in playing style. One's going to cost you 70 million and one's going to cost you 80 million. But the 80 million one is happily married, never goes out, model professional, looks after himself, 80 million. Identical player for 70 million, but doesn't take it that seriously, likes to go out partying. No intention of settling down, likes all the brands, attitude's good, but not brilliant. I'm paying 80 million. I'm paying 80 million because I know week in, week out, the 80 million pound player is going to give me more. That's not cancel culture. That's not stupid. That's absolutely where Man United have gone wrong over the last 10 years. Personality of players, and we just haven't looked at it. We just not looked at it at all, and you can see that. And look, people will be going Sancho, they'll be going Pogba. No, if you want to say those two, that's fine. I can think about 15 players, because it's not just about whether they play FIFA or whether they go out partying. It's also about, are they motivated? What if you go and buy a player who is happily married but is not motivated? He's just, Man United's the pinnacle. If I can play for United, that's all it is for me. I'm not interested in winning. There's all sorts of aspects to this, and people wrongly start going, well, it's about they like to party or stuff like that. What about the boring bastard who is just happy to be at Man United but actually doesn't really have any experience of winning and isn't that bothered about winning? I mean, look, over 90% of the Premier League will never win anything. Have you ever thought about that? Most footballers will never win anything, and they're happy to do that. You want to be boxing in the top 2%, the players that are obsessed with winning. How many players play football in the Premier League, and how many of them will win it? And yet every week they're playing, they're earning good money. Not all players are the same, and United's recruitment is terrible. A person's character is so important, says Jay. It's not for the media to gossip about, but it's important for the recruitment to know. Yeah, it's on United's shoulders, 100%. Rashford can't press high. Bruno runs like he's wearing a loose pair of jeans with no belt, says Madison. Look, bringing it back to what we were talking about, dressing room discontent, etc. I think we're in for a very interesting game tomorrow. And I think, we're in for a very interesting season. Somebody said at the start of the stream, it's a concern how, where we are as a football club, it's quite depressing. And it is. 100% it is. I'm not going to deny or lie about that. It is a concern about where we are, and I probably shouldn't do it, but I ignore it. And I don't acknowledge it. I think there's been times over doing the United stand over the last few years where I've gone, I think 2 or 3 years we can be back where we need to be. I remember when Moyes came in, he got the sack, and I was like, it's only a year or so since we won a title. We can turn this around. And then suddenly it was 5 years since we won a title, and Mourinho came in, and I was like, he always wins a title. He's the right guy. This is the reset. And then Mourinho gets the sack, and you go, well, it's Ollie's at the wheel. We're singing a song. We're dreaming. Then Ollie goes, and Ten Hag comes in, and it's 10 years, and you go, maybe we're 3 years away. And I look at it now, and all I remember saying is that when when Solskjaer got sacked and I think we appointed Ten Hag, I said, I think Ten Hag's the right guy, but we're not necessarily at the bottom of the barrel. And that was probably a very profound and accurate statement. We clearly weren't at the bottom of the barrel. I mean, last season was good, but where we are now, are we arguably in a worse position now than we were than when Ten Hag took over? I mean, there's an interesting question for you. Are we in a worse position now than when Ten Hag took over? Obviously, technically not, because we're in the Champions League and we've got a trophy from last season that's still our trophy. But where we are at the moment, we've just had our worst start to a Premier League season ever. What is this season going to become? We've had seasons where we're in the Champions League, but that's because of last season. What is this season? And that's what concerns me. How low are we at the moment? And where does that factor in to where we've been over the last 10 years? That's what we're going to find out over the next coming weeks and months. I don't really know where we are at the moment. I'm concerned we might be about to hit one of our lowest points since Sir Alex Ferguson retired. On the other hand, if we can get some players back and we can find some continuity, maybe we can rescue something from what is a dreadful start to the season. And when I say that, I'm saying if we could get 4th or 5th, that would be remarkable. United are a soap opera with Steve McLaren as a coach and wondering why they can't win a game. Living in the past, senior players past their best will get way worse before it gets better, says Chris. Look, I don't want to do this, and Steve McLaren's not who I'm aiming this at, but I am going to do it. Funky says, reality is I don't think our current players are good enough. How many honestly start for City, Liverpool and Arsenal? I said this a couple of weeks, so I completely agree with you. And Jack wants to talk about Bruno's captaincy. He should address players' body language and attitudes in the changing room, but not seeing enough leadership from him, says Jack. Well, I know why that is as well, Jack. So 2 good points here. On the training, not enough scrutiny. Not enough scrutiny on the training at Manchester United. Let's be honest. Now, whether you want to put that all on Ten Hag, his assistant, Steve McLaren, set piece specialists, we don't analyse the problems at Man United. And I like the question about the captaincy as well. We don't analyse enough the problems at Manchester United. We don't. And what I mean by that is, when was the last time we scored a corner? When was the last time we scored a free kick? When was the last time we scored from a general set piece where we cross it into the box? I don't know. I genuinely don't know. But it wasn't last week, and I don't think it was last month. It's been a very long time. You have a very basic coach like a Sam Allardyce, they will start scoring from set pieces and corners. This is not hard. This is very basic. And some of the most boring football clubs in history made a living out of scoring from corners and free kicks. And we can't do it. And it doesn't get mentioned enough. We don't focus enough on how poor our style of football is and our ability to keep clean sheets from crosses. I mean, how many goals have we conceded this season from crosses? I'm not talking about corners. I mean, we have conceded from corners as well, but general crosses into the box. So corners, cutbacks. This is basic. And I don't want to talk about it, but you know what? I have to, because you can't do this and be an agenda driven and hide stuff. You can't do that. If you want to solve problems, you've got to deal with the problem. If you've got a boil on the arse and you need to go to the doctor, you've got to go to the doctor and pull your pants down. There's no point, pretending that it's a problem. And, funnily enough, United have had their pants pulled down a few times this season. But set pieces, absolutely dreadful. We're rubbish at them. Probably one of the worst. Last season, we were bottom 3 for crosses into the box. And that's Man United's DNA. There are a lot of problems if you want to analyse Man United. And it's not as simple as, let's get a ball-playing goalkeeper. Let's get the midfield sorted out. Fundamentally, you can start to wander away from the players towards the coaching if you want to. And I don't want to. But those who do, I haven't got an issue with, because logically, I can't argue with the stats. There are fundamental issues in the basics of Man United at the moment. So, if you want to, you can do. There are a number of issues that are very basic. Tracking runners into the box, pressing as a collective, defending as a collective. Things that teams like Newcastle, Aston Villa, West Ham do second nature. I mean, look, West Ham are a great example. West Ham are very good at set pieces, both defensively and offensively. They're very good at defending as a unit, and they're very good at working hard. And that's West Ham. And I look at West Ham and I go, whatever they're doing, if we could just do that for the next month, we would beat Brentford, we would beat Sheffield United, we would win 5 of our next 6. But we can't even do that. Why is it we've got some of the best players in the country, but we can't do what West Ham do? I want to do more than what West Ham do, but at the moment we can't do the basics that West Ham do. So that is a coaching issue, and that reflects badly on the players and the coaches. What we don't know is, why can't we do it? My suspicion is the players can't do it. I think the coaches tell them what to do. I don't think the players do it. Because the players didn't do it for Mourinho. The players didn't do it for Ollie. The players didn't do it for Van Gaal. And yet therefore there's a running theme here. But it would be remiss not to focusing on the coaching as well. They're good enough, play them in the right position, says Keel. Well, I want to talk about that as well. Do you think this international break is coming at the right time for Manchester United? Well, it is in relation. Naveen, an international break is good and bad. Bruno Fernandes, captaincy, right? International break is good and bad because it is a break, but most of our players are internationals, so they don't get a break. Did you know that Bruno Fernandes has played more football than any player in Europe in the last 12 months? Like, ridiculous amount of football. There was a question about the captaincy of Bruno Fernandes. Last season, Bruno Fernandes as captain had a win ratio north of 70%, I think. It was unbelievable. And the contrast between Bruno as captain and Maguire as captain was night and day. Last season as a captain, Bruno was brilliant. And I always stuck up for him because last season, you know, if I'm captain of Man City and we're beating teams 4-0 every week, am I a good captain? Well, I am, but we're also very good at football. So, you know, how much of that is down to the captain? We're a very good football team if we're beating teams 4-0. But if I'm the captain of a team that he is successful because it's not conceding goals and we're winning 1-0, 2-0, stuff like that, I think you've got to look at leadership there because it's organisation, it's motivation, it's concentration. And last season, that's what we did. We won a lot of games on organisation, determination and communication. And therefore, Bruno, for me, last season was fundamental to that. As the captain, you could see it. So I think Bruno Fernandes is a good captain because I think last season, to me, I know why we were successful. And it was organisation, it was communication. But this season, it's all gone. Madison says, I don't like the way that captain keeps throwing hands when he's the one who gives the ball away the most. But there's a hypocrisy to that because if you remember correctly, this is what Bruno was being attacked for last year. You know, the ridiculous comment that he wanted to be subbed off at Anfield, which he didn't. He was throwing his hands in the air because he wanted to get the game going. He was throwing his hands in the air last season when he was captain and we were doing well. And he was throwing his hands in the air 2 years ago when he wasn't the captain. That's what he does. I mean, I don't get... You don't have to like a player, but you don't change a player. Like, Bruno Fernandes throws his hands in the air. Deal with it. That's what he's always done. That's what he is. That's what he does. Simple as that. But I think one problem I would have, and I mentioned it last night with Amrabat, David Smith says we should have got Gravenberch and McAllister instead of Mount. Frustrating watching them for Liverpool when we are the team with the Champions League football. David, why we didn't get Gravenberch, I don't know. Leon says it's not leadership. Well, it's not leadership for you, Leon. I'm telling you now, when I used to captain and be a captain, or when Roy Keane was a captain, not dissimilar to what Bruno Fernandes does. You know, you do shout at your players. Of course you do. You know, maybe in the modern world you have to have an arm around your shoulder and stuff like that. But I mean, I used to love it when Roy Keane used to give Gary Neville a right bollocking. You know, really go in on him, or Steve Bruce or Schmeichel. You know, that's just a different type of captaincy. The problem I think with Bruno more at the moment is if Bruno was scoring goals and the team was winning, no one would talk about him throwing his hands in the air. People always focus in on your weaknesses when you're underperforming, and they can't when you are performing. The big problem here is, and it goes back a little bit to coaching, and I don't think I can be defeated on this one, and I'm always open to it, but I don't think I can be defeated on this one. I think a lot of you are going to agree with me on this. The big problem I have is that when Ten Hag bought Amrabat, he said he was one of the best holding midfielders in the World Cup, but, you know, he's the sort of guy that will play anywhere for the team, and he's more than capable of doing it. And this always brings an alarm bell to me, because this is exactly what's happened to Bruno. Bruno has played more minutes than anybody in the last year. What does that tell you? Well, he never gets injured, but it also tells you he always wants to play. We've got Amrabat playing at left back. We've got Bruno playing at the right wing. Bruno gets slated all the time. Oh, he's had another shit game. But how many games is he playing out of position? Last season and this year. How many games has Bruno, at some point in a game, had to play out of position? And the answer is a lot. Already this season, he's been on the right wing a lot. At the back end of last season, he was on the right wing a lot. Is it a coincidence that Bruno's form at the end of last season wasn't very good, and this season it's not very good? Now, that could be because of volume of games. It could be a drop-off in his own form. But is it not a coincidence that since he's been playing a lot on the right wing, his form has faltered? Amrabat has only played on the left wing for United, and he's made loads of mistakes. There's a theme here. We're buying good players who are specialists in certain positions, and then we're going, the great thing about them is they'll play anywhere for the team. Well, I'll play anywhere for Man United. I'll be shit in every single position. It's not a trait, and it's not a good trait. And we're doing it, and I don't know why we're doing it. We're taking players who are we're playing in the most competitive league in the world. You can't disrespect it. It's the most competitive league in the world. Teams have got specialists in every position, especially the better teams, and we're putting our specialists in out of position. And then we're wondering why they're not playing well. Oh, Bruno had another shit game. Yeah, he played 60 minutes on the right wing. Oh, Amrabat was shit the other night. Yeah, he's playing at fucking left back. We have got... I can't believe... You know, go back. It's the definition again, isn't it? Of expecting a different outcome when you do the same thing. Van Gaal was Dutch. Ten Hag knows Van Gaal. Did he not study Van Gaal's time here? Van Gaal started the whole square pegs in round holes. I remember in 2015 talking about Van Gaal, or maybe it was 16, and saying square pegs in round holes. 8 years later, we're still doing it. Balance is so important. I would rather have somebody who's a left back, who is someone, you know, maybe bring Fernandes back or someone like that. I'd rather have somebody who's a specialist left back than Amrabat at left back. I'd rather have Pelistri on the right and Bruno on the bench than Bruno on the right, because it's more balanced. You're playing players who actually are specialists in that position. So I think, long answer short, I think Bruno suffers a lot because he'll play anywhere and Ten Hag's happy to do it. And I think we've seen that with Amrabat. You know, Amrabat should be playing holding midfield. I think he's shown over the last 18 months, he's probably in the top 10 holding midfielders in Europe on form, and we're playing him at left back. We've got to stop doing this. We've got to stop doing it. It's never worked. It doesn't actually work. Rashford was playing up front at the start of the season. It didn't work. Like, there's 3 players I can think of this season that are suffering because they're being played out of position a lot. Bruno, Rashford, and Amrabat. And as soon as a player starts playing badly, it can become a theme. Look, some people might disagree with me with it, but I've never liked it. I've never liked it, and I don't like it now. Mark, United always had a style of play in the past, and teams used to counter that with strategy. I feel now it's us making plans of execution to counter other teams to beat them. Why has that changed? No aggression, says Naman. It's very difficult, Naman, to exert a style of play. I mean, if you think about a Pep Guardiola, Man City are playing Arsenal on Sunday away from home. He will not set his team up in a way to deal with Arsenal's style of play. He will go there and play the way that they play. 100%. And they'll do that if they're away to Bayern Munich in Germany. They have a style of play, and that's what they're going to do. So does Jurgen Klopp with Liverpool. So does Ange with Spurs. So does De Zerbi with Brighton. Even if you're losing 4-1 to Villa, you still keep playing the same way because that's what you do. That's your identity. That's your DNA. United haven't had a DNA for 10 years. Like, we haven't had a consistent DNA for 10 years. Mourinho's always been like this. He'll look at the opposition and he'll find a way to beat them. But we should have a DNA. We should have a style of play, and we don't have one. You can't implement a style of play when you don't have one. Antonio, thank you very much. Welcome to the Members Club. Thank you, Ryan. Right, I need to go and get a Lemsip. My throat's going here. Players playing out of position can also change their normal positional play. Look at Rashford, a left winger who thinks he's a striker. We've broken so many players with this guff, says Sin Games. I mean, you know what? He might get the odd assist and he might score the odd goal like he did against Burnley. But Bruno Fernandes is crap on the right wing. And he's one of my favourite players. He's crap on the right wing. Football is for I don't know what that means, James. Thank you very much. I think that look, I love Bruno Fernandes. He's one of my favourite players, but he is a really bad right winger. Here we go. Here's the mic drop. I'd rather have Marcus Albrighton playing on the right wing for Man United than Bruno, because he actually knows what he's doing. Bruno doesn't track the left back, so the left back has a really good day going forward. I mean, I thought it was absolutely criminal to put Angelino up against Bruno on Tuesday night, because I actually think Angelino's a good left back. Now, I don't think in hindsight, I don't think he had the game he could have had, but he is rubbish defensively, Bruno, on the right-hand side. He's not quick enough. I mean, look, most left backs are quick. Let's put a guy who doesn't play right wing and isn't quick up against them. You straight away. It's like Amrabat at left back. He's not a left back. He's not got the agility and centre of gravity and pace that a fullback needs. He hasn't got it. He's a centre midfielder, and they are different positions. We need to take stock of how many injuries we have and relax a bit. We can judge Ten Hag, Bruno, once they play the way they want to play. We're just pushing shit uphill at the moment, says Funky. Yes and no. Yes and no. How are you going to get Mount and Bruno in the same team without putting Bruno on the wing? So I sort of disagree with you. How are you going to get Amrabat and Mount and Bruno in the same team without putting Amrabat out of position? The more players come back, the more problems I think we're going to have in relation to playing people out of position. Once Luke Shaw's back, we don't need Amrabat at left back, so he needs to play in the midfield. Well, you can't get Mount, Amrabat, Bruno and Casemiro in the same midfield, and you want to pick all of them. Is Amrabat on the bench? I don't know. Man United's style is to play attacking football without being married to a set strategy, but you need top-class players, not the mediocrity we have now, says Kareem. As I say, I think tomorrow is going to be a very, very big day, because all eyes are on the players. Are they with the manager, or are they starting to mistrust the manager? And you know what? What have we just spent the last 15 minutes talking about? Do you think the players don't talk about it? Why am I playing here? Why is he playing me here and putting him there? We're just we're fans. We're frustrated. Imagine what the players are like. Why is he putting me here all the time? Why can't I play here? We'll have to see. Anyway, we'll be hearing from him. I.e. Eric Ten Hag, at 1:30. We will be live with our press conference reaction. Also, don't forget, 8 o'clock show tonight. We always look forward to that. I certainly do. I deserve a drink this week. And also, don't forget our podcast, Goldbridge Saves Football. Every Tuesday morning, every Friday morning. It's a Friday morning. We're giving away 3 EAFC games today to enter. Get onto the podcast, listen, and do what it tells you to do. But also the podcast is fantastic today because it's the worst Premier League team of the season so far. There are 3 Manchester United players in it. Listen to it. You might want to put more. You might want to put less. Actually, there's 4. Fucking hell. There is. There's 4. There's 4. Bloody hell. Give it a listen. Links in the live chat, or just go to Goldbridge Saves Football. I'll speak to you all a little bit later.